So, the Switch 2 is 1 year old now. This has been one crazy year. I still remember clearing my entire schedule so I could watch the Switch 2 Direct live, getting hyped over every single thing that was announced, and genuinely getting excited for all of the cool third-party ports and new games. I mean, come on, Deltarune, Cyberpunk, Silksong, Duskbloods, GameCube NSO, Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Age of Imprisonment, Air Riders. It just felt like Nintendo was making all of the games I wanted to see, and it felt amazing. And then the wave of controversy hit, and it was pretty insane. I was someone who kept up with everything Switch 2 up until launch. I watched every trailer from Nintendo, I watched a ton of Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza footage from the Switch 2 experience every single day during class. But I also watched a ton of the Grift videos, and it was kind of insane to see this war unfold between Nintendo fanboys and Nintendo haters. Especially considering if you actually wanted to see any real change, and if you wanted your quote-unquote cause to actually mean something, you should have gone straight to Nintendo themselves instead of doing easy layups on Nintendo fanboys. However, that's besides the point. I already had enough money saved up to buy a Switch 2, and I did not have enough spare time to pre-order one. And I was busy on launch day, so I ended up getting mine halfway through the month. And honestly, it might just be one of my favorite consoles of all time. Sure, it has issues, and it's not perfect, but it just has so many things going for it, to the point where I might recommend it as the de facto console for the average person. Starting off with the hardware, you've seen everyone yap about it at this point. 4K 60 FPS or 1080p 120. This was an upgrade that genuinely shocked me when I first learned about it, because I thought the Switch 2 would barely be an upgrade. However, this is a welcome surprise for me, because this power makes Switch 2 games run incredibly well. Every single Nintendo published game so far looks and runs beautifully smooth at 60 frames per second, which saying that just really shows how weak the Nintendo Switch 1 was. It could output some beautiful games, but at the end of the day, most of the best looking games had the trade-off of running like crap. But now, there's no more compromises, and I'm really curious to see what a Xenoblade game could look like now that Monolith isn't shackled to decade-old hardware. On top of that, handheld mode has also been really great. The increased size of the console makes the whole thing much more comfortable, along with the improved kickstand making it easier to whip out and play with other people. On top of that, the Switch 2 has been really easy to take with me. I've been bringing it with me to school for the past 6 months, and honestly, it's been really easy to put in my backpack and take with me. However, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There are definitely some issues. First off, there's no OLED screen. While I'm sure they'll make a Switch 2 OLED later, it still sucks. Second, boost mode. Boost mode is a really good feature and makes Switch 1 games look pretty darn good without having to wait for a performance update or Switch 2 edition. However, I think a cool addition would be having a boost mode that instead of boosting graphics, boosts the frame rate to 60 frames per second. I think it would be a really cool feature that would make some Switch 1 games actually really fun. My third issue is game share. Game share is a really cool feature that allows you to play multiplayer games with someone without them having to own a second copy of the game. And what's even cooler about it is that you don't need a second Switch 2, you just need another Switch 1. However, the problem is that not a lot of games take advantage of it. Games like Fast Fusion, Kirby Air Riders, and Mario 3D World all take advantage of it, and it's really cool when it's used there. However, games like Mario Kart 8 and World, Smash Ultimate, all 3 Mario parties, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and the Splatoon games all don't have it, which really makes me scratch my head, especially considering freaking Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, DK Bonanza, and Mario Odyssey all got game share support, when their multiplayer is trash. Lastly, while the Switch 2 is capable of 120 FPS games, almost no games take advantage of that. The only game with 120 FPS support from Nintendo so far is Metroid Prime 4, and that game isn't that great, so I'm still waiting on a good game that'll use 120 frame support. However, a console is nothing without games to play, and we have gotten a ton of games so far. There are people out there who think just because there's no 3D Mario or new Smash game on the console, we have no games. But that could be further from the truth. When it comes to third parties, we've had a very impressive run. With the increased power of the console, third-party ports look and run really well. Some examples being Cyberpunk, Street Fighter VI, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, and indies like Hades 2 and Silksong. My main issue with third-party games on the Switch 2 is most of them are game keycards. For those who don't know, game keycards are physical games that require a download in order for you to play the game. There's no actual data on the cartridge. It is a license to download the game. This sucks. While it isn't the end of the world, I'll still buy a game on a game keycard if I really want it, because you can still sell it and trade it with friends. And it also is a better way of having download codes in a box for if a game is too big to fit on a cartridge normally. For example, Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I think is about 90 gigabytes. However, it does suck that these are being used by most third-party companies when they don't really have a good excuse to use them. Even Nintendo has set the precedent that they could be used in the future with Pokopia. But now it's time to talk about every Switch 2 game I've played in specific. Heads up, I haven't played Pokopia or Yoshi yet. I intend to buy them sometime soon, but I've got to save up for Splatoon Raiders and Pragmata. Starting off, Mario Kart World. This is a game that I've talked about a lot, and honestly, the more I played it, the more I flip-flopped on it. At first I loved it, then I thought it was alright, then I liked it, and now I've come to the conclusion that it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The parkour system is really amazing, and it really adds to the track design, and the track design is also really good. Even retro tracks that, at first, are really boring, get enhanced by the shortcuts you can pull off. However, the route segments, no matter how many times I play them, they don't get more interesting. The battle mode sucks. Even though they added Bob on Blast, we're still missing multiple cool battle modes, Shine Feast, Renegade Roundup, and the battle maps suck so much. However, Knockout Tour's fun, and the soundtrack is peak. Donkey Kong Bonanza is next, and honestly, it's my second favorite Switch 2 game so far. The destroying gimmicks are incredibly fun, and are very satisfying. The Bonanza powers are insanely fun to use and flow really well together. The story is great, the soundtrack is the best on the system so far. The end of the game is insanely hype. There's a ton of content to sink your teeth into. It's one of the few games I've gone out of my way to 100%, and I only do that for games I really like. It's just amazing all around. Next is Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. I don't think I've ever seriously talked about this game. However, the gameplay is honestly great. I really like the gameplay in Hyrule Warriors games, and the different Zonai devices and characters are really fun to play as, along with 60 FPS really elevating the gameplay above Age of Calamity for me. However, the story is trash. In short, the most interesting part of the story is the hero's construct and the Korok. However, they are the least focused on in the story, and the stuff with Zelda and Rauru sucks bums. Kirby Air Riders is next. At first I thought it was alright. Then I thought it was good, and I still think it's good. I like the game, but it is heavily overrated. My main issue with the game is that while the core gameplay and modes are fun, there's no incentive to keep playing them. There's no Grand Prix or anything like that, and the unlockables are just random checklist objectives that aren't really fun to complete. The game is still fun, the roster is amazing, the graphics are sublime, the music is amazing. It's a good game, but not as great as a lot of people say. But still a lot of fun. Next is Pokemon Legends EA. This game is my favorite game on the console. I know, burn me at the stake or whatever. This isn't the prettiest game on the system, not by a long shot. However, the core gameplay is just so fun, man. Running around, catching Pokemon, completing side missions, fighting trainers, ranking up, mega evolving. Everything about it comes together to create such an amazing experience. The story, characters, and writing are fun. It's just a really fun game. Even the DLC, Mega Dimensions, has been really fun so far. Haven't beaten it yet, just got it. There are some issues, sure. Mega Stones being locked behind online, the graphics not being too great, trade exclusive Evos making it annoying to complete the Pokédex. However, even with those issues, I still have had an amazing time with the game. And just like DK Bonanza, I 100%ed the game. The main game at least, I'll 100% the DLC soon. Lastly, Metroid Prime 4. I didn't really like this one. In fact, it's the only Switch 2 game I have not beaten yet that I own. The Soul Valley is boring and I couldn't really stomach through that to beat the game. And when you're outside of Soul Valley, the game is mostly fun. Using abilities to complete these dungeons is pretty cool, but there's no manual saving, cutscenes are unskippable, the story's pretty bad, the bosses are repetitive, it's just not that great. Next is Mario Tennis Fever. The game is good, the Fever rackets are fun, the roster is cool, there's loads of content and wacky gimmicks. My only problems are the high price tag, which is absolutely not justified, and the story mode, which is the most boring tutorial ever made. So yeah, that's every single first-party Switch 2 game I've played. There were also some third-party games I played: Pac-Man World 2 Repack, Sonic X Shadow Generation, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, Hollow Knight Silksong, and Fast Fusion, to name a few. This is without mentioning all the Switch 2 Edition games. If you want to hear more about those, however, I made a ranking on all of them where I go into more detail, so check that out after this video. The future of the console, however, is also important. What's on the horizon for this console? There's actually quite a bit. Splatoon Raiders, Star Fox, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, and Duskbloods are all slated for this year. 4 huge exclusives. However, is that enough for the entire year? I don't think so personally. I'm hoping for at least 1 or 2 more huge exclusives for the rest of the year. For what they could be, I don't really know. Mario Kart World DLC would be nice. It would be cool to get a reason to come back to that game. Getting a new 2D Kirby game would be awesome, since we haven't had one since Star Allies. A sequel to Cadence of Hyrule could be fun. As I mentioned earlier, Xenoblade 4. However, even if we don't have anything announced, I'm pretty satisfied with the direction of this console. But if we don't have anything slated for 2027 besides Winds and Waves, then I would be a bit worried. Lastly, I want to talk about the prices. Honestly, it's not as bad as it was before. At the beginning of the console's life, prices were genuinely awful. The only things that I think were actually worth the price were the console itself and Donkey Kong Bonanza. Other than that, games were overpriced, DLC was overpriced, amiibo and other accessories were overpriced, and Mario Kart World at $80 was genuinely insane. But now, there's much more flexibility in prices. Amiibo prices have gone down, game prices have gone down from $70 to $60, and sometimes even $50. At least for digital games. Physical games are now $10 more expensive than digital, which honestly, while I was a bit mixed about it at first, I do think this is a good change, giving fans a cheaper option to buy games and getting more people to experience Nintendo's amazing library of games. While I still think there are some things that are overpriced, and the fact that we haven't had permanent price cuts for games like Tennis Fever, Age of Imprisonment, is genuinely insane. However, the fact that prices are getting better is definitely a good thing. However, this is my thoughts on the Switch 2, 1 year in. Honestly, despite all the controversy surrounding this console, the Switch 2 and its games have been really good so far, to the point where it's giving me the same feelings I felt when I was 5 playing Mario Kart Wii with my sisters for the first time. However, that's kind of it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, but that's all from me. Peace.